Featured workshop, Automation, the Great Leveler in Business During the Pandemic Era. My name is Yvette Uriondo. I'm a senior business consultant with the Arizona Minority Business Development Center. The Minority Business Development Agency is an agency of the United States Department of Commerce that promotes growth and competitiveness in the United States for minority-owned businesses. Here in Arizona, the Minority MBDA, the Arizona MBDA Business Center has been locally operated by the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce since 1997. But without further ado, and because we do have a lot of information to share, our presenter today is Mahesh Vinayagam, and he is the president and CEO of qBotica. Welcome, Mahesh.
Thank you, Yvette, and good morning, all. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, and I would love to thank, as always, our good friend Alika, who's been a wonderful champion of the small business community and the minority business community in Arizona, and ably supported by Yvette and Vanessa. Thank you. And now I see like people are joining in. Maybe I'll just do a quick round of introductions before I jump into the presentation. So who I am, I'm the founder of qBotica. We are a small business founded in Phoenix, Arizona, and we just completed 5 years of our incorporation. We're one of the few automation firms, automation software firms based in Arizona. So we are serving clients globally. I'll kind of come to that in a minute in terms of which clients that we serve and all that stuff. But what we help do is to help automate tasks that are mentally laborious. That's kind of what we do. And I've been doing this for many years. I've been in the technology industry over 25 years now. And before starting my venture, I was in corporate America, doing like managing large accounts for a very large company. That was the only job that I ever had. And then entrepreneurial bug got me about 5 years ago, and they said, okay, let me just quit and start this firm. So that's kind of how my story a little bit. And good to see some friends here as well. Hey, Izzy. And some of my teammates here as well. So
got it.
Let me just get on with my presentation. So today's topic is about how automation could be a great leveler, and particularly how pandemic changed the game. Good or bad, it actually changed the game when it comes to small businesses and generally businesses across the globe, right? So it was a moment of reckoning for many of us in the business, whether it is supply chain, the way of doing business has actually really changed. And as a technologist myself, this was while the pandemic has a kind of the grayer side of the story from a humanity standpoint, from a technology standpoint, really opened up every possibility that a technologist around the world can think of, right? This is how commerce was envisioned for a duration of time. This is how it could be done in 2050 or 2070. That's how we thought. But then all of that got accelerated. At least 50 years of advancements really happened within the last couple of years. So here's, during this presentation, and also just as a discussion point, I just want to kind of really see how businesses in Arizona are really catching that trend and ensuring that, we are on top of things. And in fact, how do we actually get even better, right? So this is just a opening meeting. So I've just kind of really touch on a few points, but then obviously we are happy. We are here, right here, happy to sit down with you anytime. Or a coffee shop or lunch to kind of really discuss this in detail, how it can specifically address. So the topics that I will talk are very, very high level, but then over time, I'm sure like we can specialize, or we can really dive down into specific topics that mean to your business specifically. So that said, let's just jump right in. So who are we as a firm? qBotica is a robotic process automation company, a lot of words, but basically what we do is we automate human tasks that happens on a computer, right? So if you think about automation in the manufacturing industry, it happened at the back of what a lot of human work that used to happen, and how robots or machines really took over from the human work, right? So for example, creating a furniture, making a car, painting, things, or putting together small things together, right? So humans used to do all of that. And then we actually took the same human tasks of, okay, first place the wood on a cutter, right? Place it, then measure it, then, mark it, and cut it, and then maybe chisel it, and all of those tasks, which were all human performed tasks, which eventually converted into machine performed tasks. So here, what we are trying to do is same things, similar approach. If you think about on a computer, what do? You actually open a computer, enter a login, and then go to an application that you want to open up, and then start performing certain tasks. And how do we actually understand those different tasks that you do on a computer, and similarly, like the machines are currently emulating human tasks, how we do it. So that's kind of what we do as a firm. And I'm happy to say that we are the #1 startup to work for in Arizona, according to the website Comparably. And this is a standing that we have achieved for the last 2 years. And we are DB and SB certified as well in the state of Arizona. And recently, the Phoenix Business Journal conducted a competition. The competition was called AZ No Madness. They brought in the Valley's best companies, startups, and kind of really did a poll on them. It was a heavily contested poll. We had over like some 30,000 people voting, kind of in cumulative numbers. And we are happy to say that we are actually the top 2 in that particular contest. And finally, our beloved governor, Doug Ducey, awarded us as the most promising startup, and even gave us a really nice grant that helped us, but it's quite handy during the pandemic as well. So those are our achievements as a firm. And we work with firms like Western Union, Dish Network. These are kind of obviously household names that every one of us know. As well as that, we work with University of Phoenix here in Arizona, TP Composites, which is headquartered in Scottsdale, Arizona. We work with them, as well as some companies like Polaris and Intertape Polymer Group. Intertape Polymer Group is a company that manufactures Amazon's Prime tape. So whenever you tear the tape, it's more certain that's actually manufactured by this company. So they are one of our customers as well. So that's kind of at a high level, who we are as a firm. So we are we just hit 100 people globally from a headcount perspective. So our team just grew to 100 people just this week. So that's kind of from who we are. And like I just mentioned earlier on, right? So during the pandemic in the last couple of years, in fact, we always had pressure. We always had small businesses, needed to kind of really thrive, work hard. We had to find our way up, right? So, but then the last 2 years was like something that we never anticipated. This is not something that we ever studied for. If you went to grad schools, whether you studied MBA or other kind of scenarios, we never studied or prepared for what really happened in the last couple of years, right? So we were given a pressure that nobody even imagined, right? But with that, we were able to really, make adjustments as a community, as businesses ourselves, make some great adjustments and made some enormous transformation, right? So transformation at a scale, like I said, never imagined in the history. And what I want to just kind of give kudos to everyone, who are running a business here. So I think we thrived and not just survived. We actually thrived through this. Really made sure that we were able to navigate the crisis. And when as we thrive, that's the good news. But the bad news is that the risks that presented to us and the expectations and the way that we did things, they are becoming the norm now, right? So we actually, the first year, probably when things were like hodgepodge, people are okay with it, because they knew that, okay, they were more understanding of the fact that we may not be able to service them completely how they want to. So the customers made huge adjustments in the last couple of years, right? So to kind of really, help the businesses, obviously we got some relief from, not some, it's a huge relief from the government funding and all of that stuff, tax reliefs, PPP, EI deal. There's so much of kind of really help that was given to us to navigate that crisis. But the thing is, now those will not be in the same scale, and we would have to have, on top of it, the expectations have really changed or been increased. So it's now that presents a bigger risk now for us, right? So we don't have that cushion of financial support. We are now having to deal with a different set of customers, different set of experience. So how do you actually help them, and how do you actually move forward? So I think we cannot. One of the things that there are macro things that we cannot control, right? So there is the whole economy, things around us, those markets and all of that. Those things we cannot control. Even supply chain, other stuff. Now we can play a part, but we can never control what's happening. But how do we now do this is making sure that we don't slow down in our work, things that are in our control, right? So we need to manage what we want and what we can't. We cannot worry about things that we cannot control, right? So that's going to be very important. So really looking at things that we can control, that the things that we can actually measure, manage, and how to make this better on, right? So I think I like this quote. One of my colleagues really brought it up when we talked about this, because always when you say we are doing automation, people say, oh, is this robots? When you say robotic process automation, people ask, are we making the physical robots? But this quote from Andrew Yang really helps you capture what we think about. I think the automation is no longer a problem for the manufacturing industry, where physical labor was replaced by robots. But now the mental labor is what kind of really is a challenge at this point. So how do we actually make that even better? And the good thing is, in manufacturing, the jobs just did not vanish. Actually jobs increased because people were actually moved into other types of work, or other newer types of things were being manufactured. So, as the community of people that are working, that has always grown through the history. It has never dropped. So I think the fear of software and AI replacing jobs is no more, I think, is an issue anymore. Right now, actually, there's a huge, as you all know, there's a huge, big talent issue right now. So how do automation actually helping, ensure that, businesses are able to tackle that global talent gap? And maybe if we had software helping humans, then the humans can get better at what they do and kind of really fill that gap, right? So when we talk about mental labor, what is it about, right? So this is just a generalized version, right? Obviously, this will mean many things to many businesses. So please take this with a pinch of salt, what I'm going from a numbers standpoint. But a typical business, if I look at a typical business, what do we do, right? So we actually, most of our time, most of our time should have been, but we primarily look at developing strategies. How do I actually grow my business? How do I, approach new customers? How do new territories? How do I enter into new geographies? So you look at various type of strategies as the CEO, as the founder of the firms, or leaders of this firm. So that's something that you do. And then you look at two sides of our equation. So if you're in the commerce industry, look at, okay, who are my customers? How do I actually, what do those customers want? When do they want it? How do they want it? Where do they want it? So we kind of look at those aspects. And then we look at suppliers, supply side of the things, like saying, okay, if this is the demand, then where do I actually do my supply comes from? It applies to every business, right? Any business that's out there, obviously has a demand that it needs to fulfill, and it has a supply. And supply could be in many forms. In my world, it would be software or people that will produce the software, or give consulting to the customers. So, but then in another form, it could be just that in the food industry, it could be various other minds. So it's kind of on that side, identifying suppliers, how do they actually give to us what we need at what time, all of that stuff, and then we look at developing relationships, whether it is marketing relationships, sales relationships, community relationships, partnerships, all of that stuff that kind of really helps us grow both sides of the equation, both on the talent side and the demand side. And also we had to do our day-to-day operations work, right? And the day-to-day operations work is about, okay, I have to create a pricing list based on certain things, or I have to do an inventory list. I have to pay my suppliers, look at all my invoices, and also like bills and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what we do as businesses, right? So, but if you think about it, even if you're a real estate agent, right? So you understand what are the types of properties my customers need, and where are those, and all that stuff. And then sourcing side, how to actually get those, inventory of houses and all of that stuff on my side, and how to actually go in front of my customers, where do I need to be present to kind of really appeal to them and all that. But a lot of work that the real estate agent would do is actually sit in front of his computer, trying to kind of really go through MLS, going through all this stuff, cut and copying information from there, creating a spreadsheet, put all of this information there, then say, okay, you know what, out of all of these, 200 or 300 houses, maybe these 5 houses might be something that my type of buyers would like. And then you would have to find a way to communicate with them. And when they communicate back, taking that information and responding to them and all that stuff. So if you think about it, in any business, over 50% of the work is actually consumed by pure operational work. And this applies to any organization, whether it's a single person solopreneur to a multi-billion-dollar organization. This is a very typical division of work. The names can change, whatever, those aspects, the tasks can change, but 50% of any organization's effort are actually spent on repetitive activities. Okay? And the repetitive activities are performed by most of the time by humans that are sitting in front of computers just all day long trying to fix it, and they are being actually prevented from doing things that matter. So when I actually listed down the things that a business owner does, or any enterprise does, right? Looking at the demand side, supply side, and then operations, you all can judge for yourself what is more important in that order, right? So, but then where is the most effort going on? The efforts are actually going on things that are probably very repetitive and probably not really contributing to success of the business. But if you don't do those, that 50%, you are guaranteed failure of the business. So half of the time you are actually spending to survive, to make sure that, sorry, I don't know what happened here, but to make sure that we don't fail as a firm, right? So where do you want to focus on, right? So that's kind of an important thinking at this point. I want to kind of really, I'm trying to drive home this particular point because this is what is kind of fundamental to our thinking perspective, right? So 50% of the effort is spent on mundane tasks. But then companies that are actually mastered the art of how do you actually control that 50%, make it more efficient, right? They actually perform 8 times better than the 8 times better than the bottom performers, right? So that's another interesting statistic, right? So if you are able to control those aspects, because if you think about it, when I discuss those things, the supply side, the demand side, you cannot control. You cannot control your customers' wishes. You can only influence them. You can only ask them to consider us as a business. It's their choice at the end of it. to whether to do business with us or not. And again, on the supply side, there is you can't control unless you manufacture, unless you grow those vegetables. You are not in control of those aspects as well, right? But really, the things that are happening within our enterprise is within our control, right? How do we actually have those aspects? If we control those nicely enough, then those businesses actually perform 8 times better than bottom performers. So that's what actually a quote happens. And in fact, it's what happens in my business as well. So if I am stuck in, okay, I have to file taxes, I have to, respond to an audit, and I'm doing some compliance work, all these tax agencies across the state like to send me all kinds of demand notices. If I've missed one filing, payroll guy misses it or whatever it is, right? So I'm now chasing that thing. It takes away like 2 or 3 weeks or maybe a month away, my focus away. Then I just realized that, oh my goodness, what's happening? Our pipeline is suddenly dry. It's not suddenly dry. It's because actually I've been, taken away from some tasks that are probably not really important to the growth of the business. But if I don't do that, like I said, my business will fail, right? So those are, so it's evident to me as well. And, that's something that happens to everyone, right? So, and I'm sure that you ought to relate to this. So one of the things that we can, again, this is not a magic bullet, right? So obviously we have to do many things as a business. And that's why we have our friends at MBDA giving us a kind of really a rounded view of, everything from finance and accounting, how do you do social media, marketing, all of that aspect. And today they're just going to really ask me to talk about automation. So this is one of those critical elements that will help us towards success of our businesses, that we should try to automate everything we should and we could. Like I was trying to drive home the point earlier on, right? So this is where I was leading into saying that you should really look into aspects of your day-to-day routines and look at, okay, what are those things that I would, should be automated, right? So look at those things that should be automated. Like, for example, payments of invoices, emailing customers, responding to certain things like, do you need a chatbot instead of, taking phone calls. Phone calls take away, you had to be dedicated to that person at that time, so could you actually replace that with some simpler things out there? So you have to look at it, every aspect of your business, saying, okay, what do I automate? What should I automate? And what could I automate, right? So there could be things that probably you don't see it now. Maybe it's just something that's coming or something you feel it is difficult, but you think that could be automated as well. So kind of really make a list of those things that you should have, or you should, and you could automate, right? So like I said, it is generally 50% of mental labor is what my scope of work, and in your businesses, if there are physical labor work that you're doing, think about how to actually make that even better. So even that is something that you look at. But then again, to the scope of today's discussion and my area of expertise, I would say that look at least 50% of the mental labor. It's not all the work that you do on the computer, but 50% of the work that you do on a computer are potential targets for automation. Okay, so that's a yardstick that I'm going to give you, that kind of really look at what I'm going to do. What am I doing on a computer from morning to evening? This includes even your phone. Your phone is actually a supercomputer as well. So look at things that you do on a phone, typing, texting, doing stuff, as well as on your computer. Keep a log of them and think about, okay, how many of those are actually repetitive stuff that I could automate. And also, you would kind of really look at many things, like whether it's reading letters, things that you probably do it on a constant basis. Say if you are in a accounts payable business, or if you are a kind of a third-party agencies processing bills, processing information for a healthcare company or a tax company where you're looking at, W-9s and 1090 and so on and so forth in all those forms on a constant basis, or you're actually at an enrollment company that helps collect forms from your customers or people, and then taking that forms and entering into databases for your end customers, any of those aspects, right? So if you're doing that on a regular basis, CPAs and, it's kind of like a wide range of things that we do. And we are a huge healthcare based state. There's a lot of healthcare related back offices happens here. So if you're actually doing those things as well, like collecting, payments on behalf of doctors, or doing some reading some reports and all that stuff. So those are all human readable content. Even if those content are residing on a computer, a PDF document or a website or an email, all of these are human readable content, right? So I put it as a human readable content because it is, it could be, if I said digital, like a paper, then, you might think, though, I don't have paper, it's all on the computer. So, but even if it is on a computer, like a website is meant for humans to read. It's not for a machine to read. On the machines read only zeros and ones, right? So anything out there that's kind of really presented nicely and, or formatted in a form, like even like digital forms, all of those are human readable content. So look at those content. So, and typically 80% of the human readable content come in a really formatted fashion. And those are again targets of saying, okay, if those things you could actually automate in the future. So those are things that you can look at, right? So when I say this, you're like, okay, now what exactly is he saying? Automation in my day-to-day operations and all that stuff. So here are some examples, right? So look at, I'm sure like you're doing some email campaigns, right? So you're like trying to reach out to your customer. You have a list of customers, you put them in a nice spreadsheet, then use Microsoft, put them into Microsoft Word, you write a nice email to them, do a mail merge and send things out to them and expect them to respond. And they respond them back. You try to kind of really, look at each of those emails back and again, respond back to them saying, hey, thank you for your interest with us. And this is what we could do. And then you could do a follow-up and all that stuff. So if you do that, that's how we did, and that's how kind of many of us did in the past, right? So what will happen is over time we will miss those threads. We will not follow up on those customers after a few times, even though we did a script to really push out campaigns to 200, 300 customers. And over time, we might actually, really forget about some of those customers, or maybe they didn't want it. They might say that I'll come back in a year's time, come back in 3 months' time. I don't need it now. But then after like 6 months, they might need it. But how do we actually now go back to them, right? We have no ways to do this. And if only we used automation in terms of a CRM tool, right? So if you take this is an example for automation using CRMs, right? So that could be any CRM, right? There's a lot of CRMs out there in the market. It really doesn't matter, right? So which one you use, but use a CRM to do that campaigns, right? Because those will help store your customers, the data. So it's no more in a spreadsheet that if somebody leaves or your laptop crashes, you won't lose them, right? So it's actually now in the cloud with some CRM provider. So you are now just need an access to an email, so you can store all of those customer list. And then when you create the campaigns, some of the CRMs are really good in educating you, right? So again, the top ones has the education stuff. So I would say as a trick, buy the cheapest one and then look at the best ones to see what tricks that they offer, and then try to apply that trick on your cheapest CRM, right? You go to HubSpot, go to Salesforce, they do a lot of education for small businesses. These are things that your 10 best practices for this and that and all that stuff. So they actually have those. So look at those and automate that whole campaign process. So what will happen is you now have really good relationships built with your customers. You can track those relationships and you can go historically to say, hey, what happened to these customers? And then if you want to go even better, right, as you get into that habit of doing into a CRM themselves kind of really leads you into a path of a virtuous cycle. They might say, oh, now that you have contacts, you have now measuring their responses, why don't you create a deal and start, kind of really understanding how the deal progresses. Okay, I'll just say, okay, now this is a prospect and the prospect to customer. So you do that deal, and then now you're saying from a customer is there, then how do you actually do cross-selling to that customer? So if you actually have an inventory connected to the CRM, right, then you could say which customers is buying what, and what do I cross-sell to them? So really what's happening is, like I said, you are led down to that virtuous cycle, right? By just getting to do one thing, you will be led to another, led to another, led to another, led to another. And then at the end of it, if you like end of the year, you just go back at your CRM and say, how many customers did I contact? How many actually responded? How many actually, gave me business? And that's going to give you a chart, of a nice chart. Hopefully we all, I'm sure, we won't be in business if you're not hustling. So every one of us is a hustler. I'm sure we had actually great track record, great successes, work that we have done. But if you didn't have a CRM, and if you had it on a spreadsheet and did a lot of great work on a Gmail or on your Outlook, you wouldn't even measure what you did, right? So you can actually not sit on your own laurels that are actually, you earned it right through the year by just not doing the simple things, right? So that's a form of automation. The next thing is invoice matching, right? So, whether it is QuickBooks or there are many other smaller players that actually help you do some invoice matching. I don't want to throw a plugin. If you want, we could look at doing some of those bots out for you. So that's kind of what we do as a business. But there are many firms out there in the market, right, that does this. So you might want to, instead of you having to look at every invoice that's coming in on your email and looking up, okay, whether this has been matched to a particular PO, or did I really buy this? Look at some bills that I goods received or whatever it is, kind of to cross verify and then pay them and all that. It might look like, oh, this is just a small task. But if you actually count, you might actually would have spent nearly an hour paying an invoice, frankly. Look at, by the time your email comes in, you look at it, you research it, you talk to some people. By the time you kind of get distracted, do some other things, and then come back and do all of this stuff, you would be actually, spending a good amount of time paying an invoice, right? If you actually had an automation script that was able to look at it, just automatically connected to an email box, or you send it to a dedicated email, and that email receives all of that invoices, and that email is automatically connected to your accounting system. The accounting system is able to kind of really understand, okay, this is the email coming in from, this invoice coming in from an approved supplier that's on that system. Then it automatically matches a bill that you already put in that, okay, we have purchased it. And now it kind of automatically matches it and tells you that this is ready to pay. And when it's about to pay, it will say, okay, do you want to pay using bill.com or some other provider? Again, you automate the payment process. Then all you do is you trust the system, but you don't trust them to pay, right? You obviously want them to verify, right? So we want to make sure that, not configure it to automatically pay, but automatically match. And then you can go there and say, okay, what are my match transactions? I want to pay these transactions. You click the button, then the payment is also done, and make sure that you use the automation, even if it is 50 cents, $1 to pay it, because it's worth than spending your time on trying to take the information from that particular vendor, going to the bank, putting that information and then paying them, right? So if you already configured them, let the vendors do the hard work, ask them to sign up on a system like bill.com or some of those providers there. Let them sign up, because what happens is it prevents you from a lot of, from invoice fraud these days. This huge, humongous amount of fraud that's happening around us, right? So all these companies will come and say, okay, you owe me money. It would look perfectly same, okay? They will figure out that you attended a training because you put it on LinkedIn saying, hey, I attended a training. And, these guys will spoof as if it's their training company. And they say, hey, you missed to pay this particular part of the bill. Here's the bill. And they will say that I'm this company that actually sending this, right? So you'd easily be spoofed and made to pay that payment. But if you had them on, like say, put them on a bill.com or some kind of an automated payment system, then they had to verify with them. And even if you made a wrong payment, those intermediaries will stand by it. That kind of like, obviously they build those, whatever the verification mechanisms are. Like, say, for example, people like PayPal and Bill.com, all these companies are so strict, you can't actually, get away with sometimes it becomes difficult even to work, but they are doing that to make sure that the payments are sent to the legitimate person. So I think, so this is again what I talked about, the virtuous cycle, right? By just getting into the discipline of automating, you are now protecting yourself from a different risk presented to your business, right? So that's another way. And then getting into social media marketing, right? So, again, we all try our best to go to, the social media, put those things and try to, kind of really search, whom to like and what are those things. But one thing is that these, the social medias also offer us many ways to mass communicate with our customers and all that stuff. And also look at ads, right? So how to actually automating your ads, or also setting up messages. There are tools that you can actually set up your social media messages ahead of time. Like, say, you say that this Monday, on the first Monday, I will sit down and write what are those posts that I'll do for the entire month. You could just write them and you could just schedule them on a automation kind of an platform. There's many platforms out there that will help you do that, scheduling your post. So you just go there and put things out there, right? And it will automatically send it out on every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, however you want it, at what time and all that stuff. Instead of you having to remember on this day, on this time, I have to post something so that I can get my customers, right? So those are things that you can look at. And then similarly, getting the feedback or looking at, okay, what is the most, important item that matter to you? You could actually put alerts on Google, right? So you could actually say, if there is a news item about this particular thing, I want to know about it, right? So you could actually get those alerts. Alerts are a great habit. That's also an automation, right? So when I say automation, it's not something that's, that you have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to commission a software engineer to do it. These are simple things that you could actually do it at your end. But obviously there are things that, as the businesses grow, you might want to kind of really consume services at a different scale. And obviously investing in that will help you get into a discipline of doing things and reaching that virtuous cycle that I talked about, right? And finance and accounting, huge, right? Reading information, contracts and forms, again, another big area, right? So we are an expert in that. We can read like 1099s, W-2s, any of those invoices, orders, change them into however you want. And similarly, there are many other firms, not just us, so that are experts in doing that, try to seek them out and automate those processes. Then customer service, right? How do you look at things like using chatbots? In fact, like in San Francisco, I remember like a year and a half ago, one of our customers' colleague lost her husband due to COVID. And, when I heard about it, I'm like, oh my goodness, like to send her some flowers. And then I called this florist and, she, which is closer to her home, she's not picking up, there's not much. Then I start searching for some florists around the area. And then I found I didn't want to send it. I don't want to send to 1-800 flowers as much as I can. Being a small business, I would love to see if I actually get a florist to do the delivery. Unless I don't know anything, then I'll go to 1-800 flowers, right? So I just tried to search for florists. I found a florist, and I looked at the website. And the website had a chatbot, and I just talked to her, and she sent her the most beautiful flowers to them, right? So I think I was really surprised how that florist got my business. And she was just a street away from the other florist who actually, couldn't get my business, which I wanted to give her the business. I tried to call her, but then I'm sure like she must have been busy, or she's a one-man shop. She's just walked around, take a break or whatever it is. She missed my business, right? In this case, even if she was at a break and having lunch, the chatbot would have just beeped, kind of like beeped on her phone. She could have just looked at it and then responded immediately, or even could have just like had some automatic answers, questions answered. And these are cheap. These are not too expensive. There are many chatbot companies. In Phoenix itself has 2 or 3 companies that are, my friend Rebecca Clyde owns a chatbot business here. So there are many other companies out there, for that, really does this. So actually, I would urge you to seek them out to kind of make your business successful. Okay, that's another form of automation. And then HR, right? So talent acquisition is such a thing these days. How do you actually do some mass level reach out, attract people and kind of respond to their questions and all that. So again, same things apply, right? How do you actually understand who's your target population when they apply? What's the best way to respond to them? If there are automatic, there's so many automatic resume scoring tools available. So if you really buy them, their subscriptions are not bank breaking. It's probably like less than 5% of a monthly salary of the person that you are to hire, right? So if you actually spend that amount, even if you spend 20% of the monthly salary, that's that's good enough for you to find the right person, right? So they done, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. The scoring happens automatically for you. And it also gives a really good experience to the applicants as well. So when we automate those things, so those are things. So it summarizes what I kind of talked about in terms of emulating human activity and understanding human content. How do you actually do that? So that's what the automation does it. So there are so many automation available. Sorry, there was a question. All right, so there's so software automation is the method that's used to emulate the human activity. And so there is a bunch of software available on the internet. I'm happy to kind of really go through them in future for you all. And then there are tools available to transcribe content to the robots. So it's kind of, I'm going to kind of really wind up the discussion in a minute so that we can have some discussions. So, and summing up this particular slide, I'm sure I will share it with Alika and Yvette. So you could actually keep them handy, and whatever I discussed in that particular slide is all summarized here on this slide in terms of what are those different things that you could do to automate your businesses. So that's kind of, we have come to the end of my prepared notes. So I'll kind of happy to have a discussion now for the next 15 minutes. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Mahesh. That was a wonderful presentation, very informative, and you talked about a lot of things I had not even thought about. That was very insightful. So we open it up for questions. Please don't be shy, ask your questions.